So just want to say to everyone, hello, and thank you so much for coming today. We have the amazing Brian Marcantel here from SIRAS Systems. Brian, can you believe we are in, I think, year 7 with SIRAS?
Time flies, Jennifer.
Yeah, it sure flies. So thank you all for coming. This is a SIRAS updates training. So Brian's going to go over some updates in SIRAS, some new things, and then do a little bit of refreshing on various other tasks. We are recording, so those of you that are joining us today, please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and then Brian and I will pause throughout the training to answer those questions. So thank you so much, Brian. Take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer.
All right.
I'm Brian Marcantel, Vice President of SIRAS Systems. Thanks for being with us today. And if you're watching later, thank you for watching later. There's going to be a number of items that will probably be considered homework in this presentation. I'm going to provide a lot of resources and things you should know. But you can get straight into it. These are some of the things we'll be talking about today. And I did want to show you right off the bat, our Happy Fox area is still getting built. It's getting closer to being much more useful. I'm replacing the Padlet. If you were to go to SIRAS and then you click on the tools menu and then you go to the support center, it'll take you to the user manual. This is also being built up for staff. So we've got, if you don't see the links, if you see the, where is my, okay, I don't know where the glow thing is. Or maybe, oh, here we go. Is this going to do it? No, that's not going to do it. Sorry. Okay. So if you go to the home SIRAS support center, there's a user manual link. And on the right-hand side there, you see where I'm clicking my mouse, these little things. There's also support for administrators. This is a page that we're on right there. And I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of different things. There's the updates here. We've got preparing for fall 1. I'm kind of training out of this a little bit module. We've got data record procedures, data monitoring procedures, SEDS, CalPAD resources. These are still being fleshed out, vetted, and for those who are do-it-yourselfers, these are great resources. But if you're new or you're still struggling with something, always write us an email or give us a call, support@SIRAS Systems, and we'll go over things. But we are just letting you know these things are hopefully becoming much more useful over time. I did want to bring up, since this is Fall 1 updates, if I go to the Preparing for Fall 1 Census Day, this is a good resource. I'm going to have a training video that I'll probably be releasing later this week or next week. But if you go to that webpage, and again, it was on Support Center, Support for Administrators. You click on the little X up here. There's like this little icon in the upper right-hand corner, switches back and forth. But once you're here, there's updates. So we're talking about updates. Today was the CDE rollover. I believe we can start sending data now. We were suggesting waiting a day or two to send it. But if you want to start sending data in SIRAS now to CalPAD, technically CalPAD says okay. If you were looking at the SIRAS homepage, don't miss that we have a recent changes tab. This is good for the providers. It talks about form issues and changes like that. This update center is more for SEDS staff. We did completed a merge for Santa Clara. That's a different SELPA. That was a big thing for them. If any districts are non-ARES districts and they're using our student data file, we did have a change in one of the columns. And then there was some older updates here. I do want to go back to preparing for fall 1 because there's a couple of really good links in here. So again, I'll put this in the chat because I think this would be good for people to reference. Talk about data monitoring procedures. I'll go over that a little bit. I'm going to have some specific trainings on that. Office hours, I go over this. But there are, if you go to this link right here, the roadshow trainings, you can get a list of all the roadshows. There's one in Santa Clara going today. For those of us in Santa Barbara, if you want to go see Brandy live and in person, November 4th at Ventura County SELPA, you can sign up for that. There's a link right here on this page, and I'll put this also in the chat for you as well. And again, this is on the Preparing for Fall and Census Day, and the place that I found that was if I go to the SIRAS support if you go to support tools, support, user manual, and then you can go to these three links and go to support for administrators. Again, that's how I got here. And then I clicked, once I was here, I clicked on the preparing for fall one. That's this page. But this is kind of in general saying we should attend the trainings. There's a roadshow slide deck, the PowerPoints, you can look at that. But each district, do you guys have your fall one plan? Do you know, there's resources here that you can click on. This is from Fresno County SELPA. They have a good overview of how they do it. They assign tasks. There's a whole bunch of tasks for fall one. They have people who get assigned tasks. They have deadlines to check up on it, see if things are going on. So we're suggesting, do you guys know what your fall one tasks are? You know, set some deadlines. We've got some suggested deadlines for you. And make sure that on the census day, and we actually have like some more planning to get to LA approved. We've got, you know, questions to ask right here. I don't want to spend too much time in this. We can definitely go back to it if time permits, but we have a short amount of time today, and there's a lot I wanted to cover. But like before fall one, it talks about keep doing these sped tasks, you know, monitor students who need updated program settings. So for your preschool districts, you're going to have kiddos who are going to be turning 5 by October 2nd. So, you know, we'll need new program settings updated and set to CalPads. For your kiddos who are just about to turn 5, we got to make sure that they have a program setting, but also they need to have percent in gen ed. So these links will take you to pages to help find those things. If you're a high school district, there's a page that shows you how to find students who are turning, like if I go to this page right here, these are some data monitoring lists that you can use. It gives you queries, like if you search for a student's got a birth date where it's less than or equal to 10/2/2008, this is going to find all the students who will be 16 by 10/2. So once you get this list, you could sort by the different columns, and you could see who's got information filled out in there. And once you get the kiddos who might be 15 today, but going to be 16 by 10/2, you can sort by birth date, and then you can look at the different that you can bring in tran reg to see who's this, but we also have queries for this as well. Anyways, but back to the preparing for fall one. We actually have tasks literally to do on fall one. You can do the census day data pull reports. These are all going to be hot linked soon. I've actually got the articles. I just didn't get them hot linked yet. There is also a new thing. If you're used to running reports in SIRAS and you're used to running statistical reports where it's by 2 levels deep, well, guess what? We now have matrix and table options. So for like a table, you can run up to 5 different values in here and get unique totals. So it's really cool. So if you start looking at our data monitoring list, you'll see some of the suggestions in there, and I can maybe demo that a little bit later. Okay, so back to the presentation. This is what's going on here. Oh, it says CalPads research. I did want to show you that. This is actually really good. So if I go back to the support center, just the data record procedures, I'm going to show you that. So like if you got a new record coming into your district, what do? You have a student who's leaving your district, what do? You got to create a new record. How do you do that? You found some records and you want to list some data in it. How do you do that? Somebody asked you for last year's data. How do you find that? Right? You know, now if you're looking for past year's data, typically you're going to want to run official numbers from CalPad 16.14 reports. But if you're looking for historical information or estimates from SIRAS in a way that you can't run from CalPads, well, this might help you here. You know, back before summer and after summer, we had the before and after rollover links that were here. There's also the data monitoring procedures. This is what I was talking about, where these are some new things. We got a built-in validation system. This is going over it in detail how it works. But aside from that, sometimes the validations don't always catch everything. There's sometimes creative data entry that just gets past little algorithms that are looking for things. So if you want to find specifically records that have validation errors or warnings, you can use this button. But we also have suggestions of daily tasks, weekly tasks, to do to help keep the data clean. We've got some, these are some lists that you can use for monitoring large sets of data. And this is stuff I'm going to go over in more detail in some other reports. Oh, here's the links here. I didn't get, like, look at, if you run your disability by plan type, the 16.12 report, if you go to reporting, statistical reports, CalPads reports, these are the reports that you really want to make sure that for fall one, if you want to have reports to compare to CalPads when you're doing LA Approve, and keep in mind, you're going to be doing LA Approve in November, maybe December. And you're going to want to be looking at numbers that are really relative to the state of SIRAS or your SEDS data on 10-2. So we're suggesting that as you're getting closer to 10-2, all the students who have left before October 2nd, make sure they're inactive in SIRAS. Or if you're not sure they're going to enroll by 10-2, but they might, make them pending until you know. If you have students that definitely have left, make them inactive. If you have students who definitely enrolled, make them active. Archive your baseline while you're at it. But the thing is that in this preparation for Fall 1, we're suggesting that you print out these reports and save them. So when you're doing LA Approve, you can actually have some numbers that you can kind of compare. And if the numbers aren't exactly the same, well, then you can do this census day data pool report where you literally extract student data and service data from SIRAS and then compare that to your ODS reports, your 16.14 and CalPADS. You can find to the penny which student records were or were not in your reports. And then you can investigate on, well, why did SIRAS have them active, on 10-2, but why did CalPADS not? It might be because they thought they were going to be enrolling on 10-2, but really they enrolled on 10-4 2 days later. So they were active in SIRAS and really they should have been pending, right? Those kind of things. So, and then that's the data monitoring. And if I go back, the other one I wanted to show you was data reporting. This is questions on how you're sending data to CalPADS. I got some things here that are still being filled in. If you get to a section and you have a question that you want answered or you don't see it anywhere, let us know. We'll get it answered in these things here. But this says CalPADS resources. I'm going to put in the chat because this is a place I've been compiling a lot of things that are useful. And so I usually have these in our PowerPoints, but this is kind of an extensive list. There's a lot of information in here from CalPADS and whatnot. So right off the top, if there's any new SELPA staff or staff who want to get acquainted with how SELPA and CalPADS works together, or there's a Welcome SELPA users page. We've got the CalPADS follow-on roadmap. This is a massive resource for every district. It's got timelines, it's got flashes, it's got a lot of good information on that. We've also got the Fall 1 checklist. This is a huge list that you can download, but it gives you an idea. And in that list, it actually has names where you can say who's the reviewer, when did they reviewed it. The CSIS CalPADS overview is a really good review on how you can come up with your plan of attack on getting certified for Fall 1. A lot of good resources here. Okay, and that was about it. So this is not complete, but it is getting updated and hopefully more useful, and we are welcoming feedback on it once you get there. And again, how do you get here? If you're in SIRAS now, go to the tools menu, select the support, and there'll be a link to the SIRAS user manual. And when you get to the user manual, then you'll see the links again for if I go to the user manual, you'll be on this page right here. And then you can these links are not really useful yet. They're still kind of not working. But if you go to this 3 lines in the right, support for administrators, and again, I can post this into the chat for you. There you go. Okay, back to the PowerPoint at hand. So we talked about that. So these are some great resources that are going to get updated and made better all throughout the year. Highly suggest attending the Fall 1 Roadshow. We went ahead. These links are in the PowerPoint. They're also on the Happy Fox. I think we put them in the chat earlier as well. Tom's update. So just so you know, we do have the ability to send accommodations directly from SIRAS to Tom's through an API. That assumes that you have your API credentials for your SIS, whether that's Synergy, Q, Aries, School Pathways, Power School, whatever you have, they're going to be sending accommodations for 504 students directly to Tom's. And so now if we get that secret key and that password entered into SIRAS, when meetings are finalized and parents accept the plan, we can automatically report those accommodations for that one student in the moment. ETS is trying to get all said systems to adopt this so that over the course of the year, the accommodations are slowly built up. That way, just before training or before the testing starts, there's hopefully no more records need to be sent, or if there's a small amount of records, you can still do the batch upload, or we're going to try to have a batch update for you. So if you should be able to by sometime next year, be able to go into SIRAS, and if you've been using it, get a list of all the students that have maybe new accommodations or have accommodations that haven't been pushed through the API yet, so you can push those and maybe get around doing the batch upload. But we will be making the batch upload work shortly, probably be ready next week. We just got the updated test accommodations Excel files, so we got to get those put into Cyrus, but that'll be ready pretty soon. Any questions on that? Eligibility news. Okay, so this is a big one. AB 2173, the Reducing Stigma in Education Act. This was a great idea. They changed the phrase from emotional disturbance to be emotional disability. I think that's, I wholeheartedly agree with that change. I think it was welcome and probably a long time coming. Okay, eligibility news. You may know about the DRDP having to take kids that are up to 6 years old potentially, but if they turn 6 at any point in time during the year, um, then they don't necessarily have to be tested. And if you go into Cyrus and you click on the predefined queries, and let's see here. Looks like this update wasn't done. What slide is that? Let's see. There it is. Okay, so yeah, so see, we have the old way we did it, we had a DRDP eligible and a DRDP not started incomplete. So the way we're doing this now is that in the DRDP area, we actually have two buttons now. It's going to be DRDP eligible and then DRDP required. Those are going to be the two buttons. And instead, this is an old, I got to update the screenshot, but basically if you click on DRDP eligible, this is going to find any kiddos who are eligible throughout the entire year who are up to age 6 during the year. But if your district does not want to do the DRDP ratings on those students who are not technically required, then you can use the DRDP required button, and that will only find the kiddos who are your district is required to do the ratings for. And then keep in mind the DRDP not started incomplete will be sourcing from the DRDP required only. So if you want to do DRDPs on a student who maybe is enrolled with you through the entire year as age 5, but then 2 days after school ends, they turn 6, they won't be on our list, but you can find them on the DRDP eligible, and those still can be done that way. Okay, this was the annual determination letters. This was out in Dominic's office hours a little while ago, talking about student records who, if they were enrolled on 10/4/2023 in your district and they're still overdue for an annual or triennial as of February 13th, and then also still overdue on August 20th, get some coffee and donuts ready because CDE will be coming to your offices very soon if you got a letter. Okay, I'm just kidding there, but that actually can happen after several layers of interventions go through. So this one, if you got any students that yourself is contacting about, if Jennifer is knocking on your door asking about a list of students from CDE, it might be because they were overdue for almost a year now. So the question is, are they really overdue? Is it just because, is there an older meeting that was done, but just isn't in CalPAD, so it only appears overdue? Like, those are the things we should be looking for. But if they're still overdue after this long, there may need to be some discussion in the district about why a student could be overdue in the district for this long and not have a meeting done. And I'm assuming that they're already known about and they're probably well documented. It's probably a difficult case, all that kind of stuff. So what we would be looking for is that in Cyrus, there should already be documentation about why a student hasn't had that plan review. It might be the parents are refusing to meet or whatever the reason is. There's always some reasons, but that's the thing. That's why it's important that when we talk about, reviewing overdues and reviewing 16.21, but we really mean it. When you have a meeting that's held late or still overdue, we really want to document what the reason was that it was held late or overdue in case there's ever questions about it down the road. So it's good to document things in Cyrus for that reason. So the letters were sent out recently. So if you're getting a notification from SELPA regarding any of these students and you need help researching why they're there, if you want any assistance with that, feel free to reach out to me. Plan adoptions. It's really important that we update district enrollment. So if a student is returning to your district from last year, though, and they were on IEP last year, You don't need a plan adoption when they come back if the most recent plan, even though it's old, is still in place. But if you have students new to your district, then whatever their new district enrollment date is, we need to have that in place before we do the plan adoption. In fact, district enrollment date is so important that I made a whole page in the Happy Fox, but this is what it says. But SIRAS district enrollment date doesn't always align with your SIS system's enrollment date. A student may show up at your district and start participating in general ed on day one, but they may not start participating in special ed until, a month or two later, maybe after a meeting happens, because maybe they were not participating when they arrived. So in that case, the district enrollment date in SIRAS would be in alignment with when they actually started participating after maybe an annual review or a 30-day review. So district enrollment date is not something we automatically update. If you're having a student who's referred for initial, we wouldn't have a district enrollment date on the MIS summary page. I know they're enrolled at your district in general ed, but in SIRAS, the district enrollment date needs to coincide with the date that they were eligible, enrolled, and they started participating. So if you have a referral going through and they're getting an initial IEP, we don't even know if they're eligible yet. So by that reason alone, we can't have a district enrollment date yet. So, but basically, if you see an old district enrollment date, but then the student has been with your district since that day participating, that's okay. But typically when students leave and come back, the date should be updated, or when students stop and then start participating again, maybe even outside the IEP process, then the date should be updated as well. Okay. So there was a thing that happened last year. We have a lot of students had initial evaluations that were where they were found eligible, but they weren't going to start participating right away because they were end of year initials, where traditionally they start participating after summer. Well, CalPADS, I don't know if it's still this way or what, but at the time, CalPADS would not allow us to send future dates. So when the initial happened before last year's census day of June 30th, we needed to report what the status was as of June 30th. So for these kiddos that are found eligible but won't start participating until after June 30th, we had to report that they're eligible, no plan, other reason being they're starting in the future after the census date. So then now that we're back in school, we can find those kiddos and just confirm that they've actually started participating now. So you can go to predefined queries under data monitoring. You can click on the recent initials eligible not participating. And then when you find them, assuming they're still inactive, if you confirm they've returned and you know what day they started on, put that in the district enrollment date and then click this button right here, and this will make the record active. And it also do a little trick in this initial evaluation archive to send the correct participation status of 1, eligible participating, which means active, to CalPADS along with the plan that they're starting in August or beginning of the year. Now, SIRAS already has the initial evaluation meeting record in place, but SIRAS will also know to send a SWIDS 1 now that they're active. Also plan adoptions. Again, we were talking earlier when students transfer to your district, we update the report event date. In this case, this is a student. If the report event date was June 10th, this would mean that they enrolled in your district on June 10th, and we're going to participate for at least a couple of days before the end of the year. So we'd want to have, even though it's at the end of the year, if they're new to your district, we do need that plan in place. And then you just go ahead and click the archive and report to CalPADS. And so we're doing a lot of that now because we have students who are new to your district for fall, and we will make sure that you have a plan adoption in place before October 2nd. And we've got to get those plan adoptions done before we do like an annual or triennial. Degree of support. This is something that you will be working with SELPA and or your director. My one main takeaway from this is that if you don't know how to fill it in, don't fill it in. It's not required at this time. It's going to be required. It was supposed to be required at the end of 24-25. I've seen documentation in the CalPAD slide deck, the Roadshow slide deck that said they're not required. I don't know what's going on, but they do need to be put in there. If they are not required, if they change their mind, because originally they were required as of 10-2. Then they got pushed back. You said, hey, CalPads or CDE, you always give us a year for these big things. Give us at least to the end of the year. Say, okay, you got till June 30th, 2025. Now they're saying you don't have to have it in by 2025. I wouldn't trust that date. I've been burned by assuming CalPads things stay the same after they told us things. I would definitely plan on getting degree of support completed before the end of the year. It is not an IEP component. It is definitely something that's subjective, that is a local decision on how you determine it. If you're not clear on that, make sure that you are seeking guidance on how to fill that out. In fact, you guys have a meeting coming up, I think with Brandy soon. Yes, thank you. So that's a great time to figure out a plan of attack on getting that filled out. Now, you may see warnings on the MI summary page if it's left blank for students that's required, but that's okay. Just know that we got to get that in there at some point. Okay, we already talked about that. Okay, so I stole this from the slide deck from the roadshow. They're talking about code set updates. Hard of hearing is now they added hearing impairment as well. Deafness has had hearing impairment removed. Disability category, emotional disability, we know that's was previously called disturbance. And then the meeting delay reasons, 75 was retired and combined with 60, and then 60 added temporary school closure, and then the meeting delay reasons. So that was my slide deck. So I already, when I was doing trainings on this 2 or 3 weeks ago in my office hours, this is what I talked about, basically the same thing. You know what they didn't add here, which is disappointing, is that the biggest one that I thought was the best one, two of them was delay in parental consent, or maybe they did say, yeah, no, they didn't do it. Yeah, the meeting delay reason is now delay in parental consent. And then meeting delay reason 20 is now parent did not make themselves or child available. So those two clarifications I think were really important. I'm not sure why they were not mentioned here. That's interesting. Okay, maybe I missed a slide. Also on the non-participation, we have a new reason for 27 initials only. I'm going to spend a couple minutes on that because that's really causing some issues for some people. The 28, remember when we had 24 and 24.1, and you're like, Brian, why do you have extra SIRAS codes? CalPads doesn't have those codes. Well, CalPads has our codes now. They caught up to us. I'll just put it that way. So we had our 21 and our 21.1. Well, now they got their 21 still, but now they got a new 30 to catch up to us because we knew that these were important and they could not be rolled into the previous number. So yeah, there's that. Okay, code set updates. This is Dominic's updates. He talked about this. No mention of 27. That's an important one, but I'll get into it. On this page, in the PowerPoint, if you want to find the actual definitions of these fields and codes, you can go to this page. I would suggest looking at the CalPads code sets, but if you want to see the file specifications, I would suggest using the Excel documents and not the document, the Word docs. Easier to read. Okay, this is the one. It used to be called, remember, it was parent refused to consent, but now it's called delay in parental consent. So that's a reason why we could have a delay reason for initial Part B or Part C or reevaluation because you need consent for the assessment plan. This is that parent didn't make the child available or parent didn't make themselves or child available. So that's good. Have a little clarification on that. All right, these other ones are all basically the same, although there was this one, the 60 has now been merged. It's gone. 75. This is the one that's retired. Okay, non-participation reasons. 11, this is basically the same, parent declined FAPE. Notice that if you're having an initial IEP and the parent responses does not accept the plan, you now get two options. What we're calling 21.2, which is a third version of 21. At the time, the CalPads didn't have a code for it, but now this is the 27, right? But let's just say that they're okay with the eligibility. They just don't want to start participating at this time. Most likely they're going to a private school. That's what 11 is. And again, not again, I'll just reiterate this very important fact. If you have a student who's participating and they're getting services, and then out of the blue, the parent says, you know what, we're not going to stop anymore. We're not going to get services anymore. We're going to the private school. You're effectively declining FAPE. We would never make an active record have this non-participation reason if they've started services. The only reason we set 11, 12, or 27 is at the immediate outcome of an initial. Once they start participating and then they stop and then they're saying they're declining FAPE, that is this one. Cessation of service without revocation. Right? Let's go back to this 11 though, real quick. So, so if you're selecting inactive reasons, see what it says initial evaluation outcome, even though it sounds like it, hey, they're not on a plan, they declined FAPE. That's the situation now. But if they already started participating, then this is not, you can't use this because this is not an initial evaluation outcome. So if they're stopping services out of the blue, means they're exiting participation or stopping participation. That's the exit or withdrawal from SPED, not the initial evaluation outcome. The other initial evaluation outcome is the maybe they accept the plan, but the plan effective date is going to be much later. So this is what this is what we had to do last June, and we'll have to do this again for October 2nd as well. But let's say you got parental consent before 10/2, you had the initial meeting before 10/2, but the plan effective date isn't until after. What I'm not clear on right now, and I'm hoping to get clarification from the roadshow, is that do we still have to do the eligible no education plan? So what this means is for any meetings that are happening this month before 10/2, but they're not going to start participating until after 10/2, do we have, this is kind of, it's kind of funky because you know they're going to start participating, but yet we have to finalize them like they're not participating and then make them active again. And we got to send 2 successive records, which is kind of annoying. It'd be nice if we could just do this all in one. So if you have initials that are like this, hold off finalizing them until you hear more from us about the best way to do it, because the way we know to do it now is a little confusing. If they're going to accept future dates, we might have an easier way to do this, kind of along the line of sending a pending meeting. But we'll get more into that. So, okay. Non-participation 21. This is the result of you had an initial evaluation, but they're found they did not qualify. We know about this one. These are other, oh, and then if you're looking at students who have previously withdrawn, you might see that what you may go is like, hey, Brian, I know that withdrawal now means that they're not eligible. Well, that's true, but this was turned in a year ago. And so at that time, withdrawal, which was our 24.1, the eligible not participating one, we had to report as eligible not participating, even though the parents were believing that their kiddo was not eligible. So this got talked about with CDE by their legal department, and that's why we have to, that's why we have this one, 28, written revocation. This now reports as not eligible instead of eligible not participating. And that's actually where this 27 one came from. This is the one I wanted to look at, is that when we were having the discussion about parent withdrawal, and we pointed out as a vendor, said, look, you're saying parents withdraw, which the SELPA believes that they're no longer eligible. So if they do parent withdrawal in a SED system, we have an initial evaluation that they're referred again. But yet you're telling us that they're considered still eligible, even though the parents said they're not. Are you sure this is a tactic? Is this what you want to do? And so CD said, yeah, well, we'll go talk to legal. And they did. And then that's why we got these new codes. That's why we got this no consent for eligibility. So I want to spend a moment on this. This is really important here. Now, we haven't made any changes in the paperwork of an initial evaluation. But the thing is that if you have an initial evaluation and the student is found eligible, but the parents aren't agreeing to the plan, we need to know the distinction of what level are they not agreeing to. Are they okay with the initial provision of eligibility? Are they okay with the student being determined that, hey, we believe they're autistic or have autism? Or do they have, or is there other health impairment? Whatever the eligibility is that you guys are proposing a plan to help the kiddo. They may say, you know, we're okay with that. We just don't want to get services right now. We're going to go to the private school for a little bit. And then maybe if we want some of those services you promised or in the ISP, whatever, maybe we'll come back to you, right? Well, that would be eligible no education plan. They're just simply declining FAPE, but they're okay with the eligibility determination. In fact, they're okay with that so much that they may come back and have services at a later time. Even though we don't know that, they're most likely not going to get service. If we know they're going to get services later, well, that's 12, no education plan, other reason. But if we're pretty confident they're not going to get services just because they're declining FAPE, well, we would do 11. But this one this is a choices coming up, and so I'm already getting feedback that this phrase "no consent for eligibility" is confusing the IEP teams because they don't see any difference between saying we don't recognize this kiddo as having any eligibility at all. And also, yeah, of course, we're not going to start a plan because we don't even believe the plan should even exist in the first place. Whereas the first one is we understand our child has a special need. We're just opting not to get services at this time. So for some reason, what we thought would be pretty straightforward and self-evident, no consent for eligibility, is not as straightforward as we thought. That some staff are checking this even though the parents are okay with the eligibility, they just don't want to start the plan. So we're actively seeking feedback on lingo from the special ed team to make it easier to tell them what these two options really mean. I mean, maybe for those on the call, this is, pretty self-evident for you, but please get feedback from the team, or maybe take a moment, like in your plan of attack for your fall-in planning, take this screenshot from the presentation and meet with your IEP team and say, hey, this is what's going on. If you get this dialogue box, let's talk about what it means, because we want to make sure, because even though you may have found the child eligible for special ed services, if you finalize the meeting as no consent for eligibility, Cyrus will report it as not eligible, and then in theory, if they're referred again, they need another initial evaluation. So that's not the intent of the parents. We got to make sure that we know that up front. That's really important. Okay. That was about it for the updates. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions and then possibly going into another PowerPoint on some data monitoring. But I will stop there for the moment. How are we all doing? Would we like to take a quick break? What's going on, Jennifer? Maybe we want to pause recording for a second.
Here we go.
And then let's see. I'm gonna find a where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So I'm gonna start. I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on, let me share my screen. Slideshow from the beginning. And, share screen. Oh, where'd it go? Sorry, technical difficulties here.
Don't worry.
There we go. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Zoom, where did you go? You disappeared on me. Share screen. One. Boom. Okay. Let me throw this in the chat. This is a data monitoring PowerPoint. So unless we have questions about what we went over the first part, this is some things that we can do, includes fall one information. But basically, some acronyms, preparing your data. So this data monitoring is how we're going to get our data clean for CalPads. So if you go into predefined lists, we now actually have a number of new tools available that we've been kind of developing over time. But the data monitoring lists are useful because you can quickly build a list of data points that you can then go through and update or sort, look at large volumes of data and try to find any potential anomalies. Now, when you do go to these lists, notice that there are a bunch of buttons here on the left. Those will actually build a list for you. If it builds too much information, it's usually easier to remove information than it is to add it. But it's also going to invoke a query. So the first list are validation errors and warnings. You can click on that. It'll build the list and it'll show you all the records that have more than one error warning and explain what they are. The special ed program data is one I'll go over in a minute. There's the infant preschool program data, which this will find all your kiddos that are infant or preschool. School and district data doesn't invoke a query. This is also another one that you can build and then sort. And then, of course, these are some probably more queries or lists that you've seen before. These are ones that have been there a bit, but now we have explanations on what is going on there. So when you're doing your fall one, there are a number of tasks that we can do. this is actually just as a reminder on the census day, we do want to do a couple of these reports. But leading up to that is the data monitoring that we do to make sure that the data is as clean as it possibly can by 10/2. So that's why we do the data monitoring on a regular day, every day. So one of the things that I'm going to point out that is going to be really useful for you is for those of you who already started on cleaning up your program settings for your preschoolers, you may have not archived them all. Maybe you're setting them early and it's too early to archive. Or maybe you've fixed them and forgot to archive. Doesn't matter. We have a button for you. Under predefined queries, there is a data monitoring query, and it's called program setting change but needs reporting. So if you use this button, you're going to find the records where maybe you changed them or somebody else changed them, but they haven't been archived to be able to report that information to CalPads. And again, CalPads wasn't accepting data until I believe today. If you want to be part of the early adopters, you can feel free to send data from SIRAS today. I was suggesting to wait till Thursday to see if any things came out in the woodworks, but hopefully it's working well for people. And now these are going to be really important. These should be run, usually on a weekly basis, if not monthly. But now we're going to really want to focus on them because we got a lot of kiddos who are going to be aging out of a program setting, and we got a lot of kiddos who are going to be possibly 16 by 10/2. Maybe they're not 16 just yet. So these buttons under compliance concerns are going to be very useful. Obviously, we have the overdue ones that we can look at. But I want to focus on the data changes that we're going to need to make. Like if you have transition indicators required and they're blank for age 16 or over, these are going to be errors for you in CalPads, most likely. Do you have any transition indicators? No. Those are also going to be non-compliance issues. And then for the preschool districts, these are the ones where the student is, as of today, already 5 and in kinder, so they need their program setting. But that begs the question, what about students that are turning 5 after today, but before 10/2? Well, we have a query for that. And then we also want to look at the kiddos who are no longer in preschool, but they still have the preschool setting of 203 or 204. Now, if they're 4 years old and still in TK, there's an argument to be made that you can still technically keep these, but you really want to look at these closely. These are part of your indicators for are the indicator groups that you're being monitored under, and you want to make sure that you absolutely know that these are accurate and don't need to be updated, right? So reporting initials, this is the thing that keeps me up at night. So we have a census day of 10/2. If we're lucky, parent consent, the meeting, and the plan effective date all happen before 10/2. If that's the case as a fall one, it's real easy because the meeting's been closed, most likely. Or if it hasn't been closed, you can force reporting this information, but most likely it's been closed because the plan effective date's been set before 10/2. So this is an easy one. Now the second one and the third ones we needed to talk about. So this one we just looked at, right? But what about this one? You've got parental consent, let's say in August, and the meeting happened in September, but the plan is not going to be implemented. So the status is, so technically speaking, they're not starting participating until after census day. How do we report these? These are the ones like we did last year. As far as I know, we still have to do what we did before. They're saying we can send future dates, but I don't know what the limitations of that are. CalPads has not been clear, but if nothing changes, then minimally for a student like this, we would need to send a fall 1 SWIDS 2 of eligible not participating, non-participation reason 12 being that they're going to participate after census date. So we would only send a SWIDS 2 and a MEET 10. And we may need, and what I don't know, folks, is if we're going to require you to finalize the meeting before 10/2, before you do LA approve, I should say, so that you can at least turn in those things. And then the plan effective date of 10/8, that will be obviously for end of year 4, or maybe not obvious for new people, but we're still, the jury's a little bit out on this. I've got some people who are asking questions of the roadshow people today to see if they have an enlightenment on that. But I think that's kind of what we'll have to do. I'm hoping that if this is the case, we'll have an easy button for you. So if the initial IEP is still open, but you have the plan effective dates after 10/8, I'm hoping we can get an easy button to report these two things without closing the meeting ahead of time, but we may need to. So just for initials, where this is happening, where the date span goes over 10/2, keep us posted. Let us know what you're doing with these so we can help you get them going. Now, the third scenario um, is one where the parental consent date is prior to 10/2, but the meeting's not happening until after. So just so you know, in this scenario where we have parental consent date and the meeting may or may not be after 10/2, we should have already reported a pending as of record. But scenario 3 is where it's literally required by CalPADS. However, there is no error if we don't do it. Just know that if CalPADS decides to get a bug in their rug and they want to look at the last 10 years of initials where districts did or did not turn in their pending as ofs, they'll be able to find them very easy, and that might put some targets on some district backs if you're not sending the pending as of. So it's really important. Pending referrals list, we will get to that in a second here, but that is one of the data monitoring lists where you can find, do we have parental consent to assess? And if so, do they have an SSID? If they don't have an SSID, we got to get that SSID as soon as parental consent is there so we can report that pending as of. And I know a lot of CalPAD staff don't like doing that. It's like, well, they're not enrolled. We don't know if they're going to enroll. Correct, but you are required, legally required, as of the parental consent date, to obtain that SSID to report the outcome of the meeting. And you're also required by CDE rule or CalPAD's rules to turn in the pending as of. So that's, we'll just leave it out there. If there hasn't been any issues so far, district's not doing it, but I can't guarantee that that's going to be the case in 2 years from now. Look at what they did with the annual data, the annual determination letters. They're looking at data in all these different angles, and this is one they already told us they're going to look at. So you don't really, I just want to emphasize, you got parental consent, get the SSID and get a pending as of record archived. I highly recommend that. Okay, some lists here. So daily tasks. What do we do on a day-to-day basis? Well, as soon as we log in, you're gonna have a welcome bar up top. It's gonna give you some notifications as to what's going on in there. Maybe you got some transfers, you got some messages, you got a user transfer. So even if you're a small district, you're gonna want to log in and look because it's possible that a staff person that worked for your district maybe is now working at a neighboring district and somebody's trying to get their account moved over. Maybe you've got a student who moved out of your district and is in a neighboring district and they're waiting for that record so they can actually start working on their IEP. So we want to make sure we're going to the homepage at least once a day. Now we've got some links in here for some help sheets and all that. Just want to draw your attention to the current meeting alerts and the 43 CalPADS errors. Any errors that you have posted means that this is data that's not in CalPADS yet and won't go to CalPADS until these errors are removed. So we need to figure out, are these errors something like, they could be something as simple as a GER5 on a plan adoption because the enrollment's not sent to CalPADS yet. Well, that's a simple fix. Get the enrollment in place in CalPADS, remove the error, and send the record on its way. But we definitely, before you're doing LA approve, you want to have 0 CalPADS errors left. And if you're having trouble getting rid of these errors, let me know so we can work on those. So these current meeting alerts, if you didn't know, these links are all links to queries. The 76 students with overdue annual or triennials are overdue as of today. So if you're looking to do, maybe somebody said, hey, we need to know how many triennials do we have to do before the end of the year? Well, you could click on this word triennial, and then when you get to the list, you'll see the as of is as of today's date, 9/17/2024. You can bump that date from today's date to June 30th, 2025 and hit enter. And then that will give you a list of all the students who need to have a triennial before the end of the year. Same thing works with annual, or you can use both. Now, the upcoming links are useful, but these are more useful for providers where they're logging in and they're seeing, hey, how many of my current caseload has a meeting that's going to be due within the next 30 days or 75 days? But these are also useful too, because technically speaking, if you clicked on this 234 students, every single one of those students in that list should have a meeting already in place. If they don't have a meeting in place, then we need to contact staff responsible for that. Say, hey, look, they're upcoming. You should have a meeting. You should already be scheduling this meeting with the parents by now. The IEP is due in less than 30 days. China is due in less than 75 days. It's coming down to the wire. You got to get those meetings opened and you got to get them scheduled. Now, a question does come up, well, Brian, we're showing as overdue for this meeting, but the kiddo came in and we're having a meeting, but the meeting's gonna be happening after 10:02. No problem. You can archive, once that meeting's open in SIRAS, even though there's no meeting date, you can archive the MI summary page for annuals and triennials, and you can send that pending meeting. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the 16.21 report, that's where you're monitoring your overdues. If you go into the CalPADS office hours, they talk about if a record looks like it's overdue for you, what's going to make it look less overdue for you is if you're able to send a pending record, right? So these upcoming meetings here, if they're not going to have a meeting done before the census date or a meeting date before the census date, you don't have the meeting finalized before you can report it, but you can send a pending as of, and this will help if your district's being monitored by FUMTAs. This will actually let them know that you're already working on that meeting. And then another thing on a day-to-day basis, you're going to want to review your pending status at the bottom, usually recent transfers, because technically speaking, any student records in your district that have a pending status, that's a to-do list. They need to get off this to-do list. Either they enrolled and started participating, then we need to make them active and update the district enrollment date. Or do we know that they're not going to enroll? Well, then we need to make them inactive. Or are they in the middle of an initial evaluation? If that's the case, then we need to let the initial evaluation play out, and determining on the outcome of the initial and the agreement of the parents, they may or become actively enrolled and participating, or they may become inactive for whatever reason. Okay, and then also this big donut here also can invoke queries for you if you click on them. Okay, so when looking at this page here, again, this is that link where you can find all the students who are overdue as of today for both annual and triennial. And this is that list I was talking about here, where once you click on this, you can say, I want to make it overdue as of 10/2. Glad I have the screenshot. I forgot about that. Let's see, overdue initial evaluations. All these kiddos, they might be on this list because there's no meeting date. But if there is a meeting date, and the date in the distance between the parental consent date, also known as assessment plan received and parental permission was yes. If that's more than 60 days, we're going to need meeting delay reasons, and that's the ones that are going to be on this list over here on the right. But these ones we want to look to make sure that these are being followed up on. Do we have parent consent that's from last year and then we don't have a meeting date? We want to look at these. We'll make sure, are these really, are they in progress, or did somebody forget about them and we need to come back to them? New referrals, these are also your records that are in process, but these are ones that have less work done on them. And then we have the pending status, that's the one we talked about a minute ago. Now, for CalPADS reporting, we definitely want to get all of our CalPADS errors to 0. Any errors left over means that there is data on the table not being reported. So it's very possible that these CalPADS errors could be contributing to your overdue list. So if you have a triennial that was done late, but the meeting delay reason isn't correct, and CalPADS is blocking you from reporting that triennial because the meeting delay reason isn't appropriate, that record's going to look like they're overdue for their triennial. And it hasn't been done yet. You can't report that at least it's been done and what the meeting delay reason was, right? So those are some things that could be coming up. When you have your transfers, interdistrict transfers, data monitoring. Part of the data monitoring of a transfer is, okay, are they an interdistrict transfer? Well, then you got to make sure that not only are you listed as a reporting LEA, but you're also the district with special ed accountability. And later on, when we talk about the DSCA list, you're going to want to check your receiving and sending lists, right? But it's important when students move from another district or to your district, get records like the DRDP. Is there any possible potential for an IEP that was held outside on paper only? Maybe they came from out of state and they have an IEP from an updated IEP from out of state. That is not the same thing as out of state SELPA. Out of state SELPA from, those are ones where CalPADS has 0 information, and we're using SIRAS to let CalPADS know, hey, they came in from this IEP that was determined in another state, and now we're introducing it to California. If you have a student who's on a California IEP and they go out of state for a moment, have an IEP and come back, that is just an updated plan. It's an updated last IEP date. It's not an out of state IEP in that regard because it wasn't developed out of state. It may have been updated out of state, but it's not the out of state IEP that we think of when doing our baselines. So also on the home page, you're going to want to review your transfers. There are these things called allow preview on the right-hand side. So if you have a student and your district's trying to finish up another review before they let the record transfer to their district, and you want to buy yourself a little time, use this allow preview, because whatever district is requesting the record from your district, this will allow them to get a read-only view of the plan. So then their IEP team can print that out and start planning for the kiddo once the record is released to their district and they can start working on their own IEP. We also have caseload assignments. This is now, I don't know if Santa Barbara is adopting this quite yet, but this is where general users can go in and do managed caseload. And if they know the student's name and ID, or they can search on the kiddo and they can say, I need to be assigned as this, or I need, but they also might be removing them too. So it might be assignments or it might be removal. Maybe they have a student on their list they don't need to see anymore and they need it removed. So you can approve those here. We also have transfers. So if you're trying to create, maybe you have a new student in your district, or new user, new staff person in your district, and they are new, but they say they already have a SIRAS account. We don't want to create a new duplicate SIRAS account for them. We can request a transfer of it. And there is a transfer process where you actually go to create the user, you put in their old username, and SIRAS will detect, hey, this username already exists. At that moment, you can create the transfer request to your district. Also look at your incoming messages. If all of these are old and you don't need them referenced anymore, there's an archive all messages button at the bottom. You have an SIS bridge report under tool site admin if you're connected with Aries or school pathways potentially. Again, this is fall one data monitoring. Part of data monitoring is going to be going to, now that the snapshots are going to be created this week, you can go into your certification status for fall one, start reviewing your errors and warnings. This is all part of data monitoring. And the earlier you can get these looked at, the better off you'll be in November when you're trying to do LA approved. Then for DRDP, part of your monitoring, this is an old slide here. We want DRDPs a little earlier in the SIRAS, but this DRDP not started, this is a button that you want to get down to 0. This is, again, this is an old screenshot here. I should have another one, but there's going to be your DRDP required, but this is going to be your DRDP that are required where we don't have a DRDP created yet, or if it's been created, it's not completed. So this DRDP not started incomplete list, we want to get that down to 0. And we're looking to try to get we want to get all the ratings entered into SIRAS at least a week or two, hopefully 2 weeks before all your staff leave on Christmas break, because we can run error reports on it and they may need to fix the errors. There might be missing data. So weekly tasks, this is where you can review upcoming and overdues. Trying to do it on a daily basis, you'll go nuts most likely. Do it on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how large your district is. Attend trainings. We have like my office hours each week. Dominic has his office hours each week, or maybe other over the week. And CalPads has their office hours as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to go see something on a weekly basis. If you have 0 errors or warnings in SIRAS, send data from SIRAS to CalPads. If you have some errors or warnings and you're not sure how to clear, let us know. Plan for trainings, we're already doing that. Save the dates. Okay, so Census Day again is on 10/2/24, and then I have my office hours on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. There's a link here. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we're coming up to 20-minute mark before the end. Okay, so sending SIRAS data to CalPads. We have something called Follow the Yellow Brick Road. So you can connect on the CalPads API. It's got that yellow button. If you have questions about CalPads reporting, you can click on that blue question mark there. All over the place in SIRAS, we got those blue question marks. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Errors that are left on the table mean data is not in CalPads. So we want to get these all down to 0. And if you don't think you can get them down to 0 soon, let us know so we can help you get those resolved. And we talked about setting data. Okay, I wanted to look at some of these predefined meeting reports here. they're ready to finalize. These are good to look at before, but I would say also meetings in progress to open past date. This is a good overview. You click on this meetings in progress. This is something you can run on a weekly, if not monthly basis, but I would suggest again weekly, because there may be records where the meeting should be finalized. It should come up in here. But maybe somebody forgot to click meeting held and it's getting open. And you look at these meetings in there, you go, oh gosh, these have been forgotten about. We need to close them up. So meetings in progress, open and past date's really important to look at. You can also do your own search query criteria if you want. If you have records where we know that the meeting has happened before 10/2, but you're not going to be able to close the meeting before you click LA approve, we can send just those meet records. So keep in mind that we can report meetings that have happened even if the meeting has not been closed yet, or even if meeting held hasn't been checked. We want to make sure that we're finalizing these initial evaluations properly. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I would say at this point, we shouldn't have any students without a case manager, but we do have a button to look for those. And you can also search. So if you click on search and then you in Query Builder, you type in case manager and leave it blank and then do search list. We shouldn't have any students that don't have a case manager at this point. At least no active ones. Predefined lists, these are the ones we want to look at. New referral list, this is the one where we're going to be looking at them to make sure, hey, have we got parental consent for assessment yet? And we don't have an SSID? Well, we need to get that SSID. This is also the new referrals go-to list. This will get you to, so this link right here is literally the same link as this go-to list as well. And when you're in this list, this is what we're looking for. We're going to be looking at things like this. Do we have a situation where, like in this case, we've got, this hasn't been reported yet. This meeting needs to be finalized. Here's one right here where we got parental consent date, and but we don't have an SSID. So we're going to want to look at these records where we don't have an SSID. Is it possible that, the plan types are not correct? Monthly tasks. I want to show you something though. We actually did come up with something. I'll segue to that right now. If you guys are in, we talked about this earlier, the user manual, this is when you go to tools, support, go to the user manual, but go to support for administrators, and I'll put this back into the list here, the chat, and then go to data monitoring procedures. And we're going to go to this page. Now, I want to show you something that this came about a year ago, and this is a direct result of feedback from Santa Barbara. Lower down on here, we have daily tasks, weekly tasks, and SPED focused by specific months. So if you click on this link here, and I'll put this chat. So people want to know, well, what is based on the month, what do we do? Well, right now we are in September, right? So there's a number of September tasks. You want to keep up with your homepage monitoring because it's the beginning of school year. Close out SIRAS accounts for staff who've left. Now, don't create, this is what we talked about earlier, don't create duplicate SIRAS account for a new staff person. You want to get them requested, right? Your FTE results from fall 1, 2023 and your 16.5 or 16.14 file need to be calculated. So it's possible that I may have provided your SELPA with FTE estimates from SIRAS run on 10/4 from 2023. Well, CalPADS is now saying they don't want estimates from your SED system. They want it literally from the 1614. So I've actually got this page here. So you can download your 1614 directly from CalPADS. You can do your own FTE calculations, or you can give this data file to your CBO. But there's two types of totals they want. One is they want to make sure that you're doing your FTE totals with the charter schools not included. These are type 55. And then the other one where it's only the type 55 charter schools. I've got some help on that, but this is still old and needs to be outdated a little bit. But basically keep that in mind why it's in here. And the other thing is that you can also do your FTE estimates from SIRAS on 10/2, but at the end of the day, they're going to want your 1614 from your certified fall 1 2024 count when it becomes available next year. In the meantime, before the snapshots are ready, check your data discrepancy reports in CalPADS. This is something you can do before the snapshots are ready. Continue finding the students that were found eligible last year but weren't going to start until this year. Maybe they didn't come back. If that's the case, we don't make them active. If they did come back and they started participating, then we do want to make them active. Make sure you're familiar with the DRDP help page. Talked about that. Make sure that you're looking for your planet options, and then keep up with your 1621 report. The 1621 report also will let you find records that need planet options, because the only if you're clicking on the planet option button in SIRAS, the record has to be in your district already in SIRAS. But you may have had a kiddo that transferred into your district from a neighboring district that may or may not be a SIRAS district, and they're eligible. So if you're running your 16.21 report and you find students in there and they don't have your district listed or even your SELPA, then most likely they are new to your district, they've enrolled, they're eligible, but you haven't set up a planet option yet. So we're going to need to get a record in SIRA so we can send that planet option up. Now this actually will go to a help sheet where I've got some information on 16.21 that's useful. But also we're talking about, don't forget about entering in your school holidays. Have you finished entering in your holidays for this year, right? You go to Tools, Cyrus Admin, click on Calendar Events, and then enter in your calendar events. Once you click Create New Calendar Event, it comes up here with a blank description, so you fill that out. You can click on the menu, do the start date, end date, and then you can describe it right here. And then if you're a feeders district, do you have students who are in 8th grade with your district this year, but you know are going to a specific high school district next year? We want to fill those out as in next year's data. And just even if you only fill out next year's district, that's fine. That'll be enough for the other district to start doing their projections and calculations for next year. And then if you have students who are going to a specific school within your district next year, well, you can fill out next year's data with the same district, but the new school. Okay, and then we talk about daily tasks and all that kind of stuff. All right, so back to this here. So when you're getting ready for fall one, and now that you've got accountability monitoring reports, right? So this is where you can find your 16.21, and you can compare those with your DINC 1 previously overdue annual or previously overdue triennial and SIRAS. There's also 16.20 where this is a new list. It basically just starts compiling up all the initials, I believe, or all the meetings that have happened. I'm still not 100% sure what it's doing, but it just looks to be a list of meetings that have been held so far at your district. Overdue procedures. Do you have any students that are overdue in CalPads, but there's a meeting in SIRAS, right? So we can send a meet only if the meeting date's going to be in the past. But you can also send pending records, pending meetings. If you simply have a meeting created in SIRAS, but the date's going to be in the future, you can archive the MI Starting page. And as long as the meeting type has already been created, it has to be an annual or a tri. Excuse me. You can send those pending ASOs too. Pending ASOs are not going to work for initial evaluations. The pending ASO for initial is really only the pending as of parental consent date. To send an actual meeting record and SWID status before the initial's been closed, we don't have that feature just yet. We're still waiting on CalPED's guidance on if we can even do that. We're not quite sure. Meeting delay reasons. We talked about this earlier in the update in this previous section, but this is the grid that you can find in the Padlet to tell you which meeting delay reasons are appropriate for which meetings. Notice that not all meeting delay reasons are appropriate for all meetings, right? So let's say you're having a triennial evaluation. School break is not an appropriate reason for why a triennial is overdue. When you're running your 16.21, you're going to want to make sure that when you go in here, you're running it as of October 2nd. And then you can go to monitoring category. I would suggest leaving all this default except for the date. Oh, make sure academic year is 24-25. This is your plan adoption required, but again, this requires the record to already be in your district. Preschool kiddos. Make sure you're asking case managers to let you know for students who maybe stopped attending mid-year or never started this year. It's possible we may have had an initial IEP last year and they started participating, and then this year they don't come back and they're not enrolled. So you may need to have a little extra information find for these kiddos. And also there's a query here If you go on this link, it's going to take you to this page where, remember, I was saying you could find students who will be 5 as of the census date. You can actually look for kiddos and project who's going to be 5 next year, um, and actually see who maybe we need to follow up with. Um, who's going to be 5 by next year, and maybe we need to look for them because they didn't start, but maybe we need to follow up with them, right? NPS students, how are we doing on time here? I got 10 minutes left. Okay, I want to make sure we have time for questions. If you have NPS students, make sure that they are reporting their discipline to you. This is an older YouTube, but it's still got great reference material on there for you and information. There's CalPAS resources. They're supposed to self-report all of these incidents, but you may need to follow up with them and just double check that that is being done. Okay, we talked about these 2 buttons earlier, this plan adoption required, and then program setting, change, and reporting. These are going to be run. I'm still sharing. Let me stop it and start it again. All right, can you see the screen now? Okay, good. Okay, so let's see. I want to go back here. Okay, so this was the links here. So, and then you did have the, let me just double check that I got the data monitoring. Where did it go? Oh yeah, if you came later, here's the PowerPoint that I'm sharing right now. I probably will update it in the future, probably tonight. I'm seeing a couple slides that I need to fix something on, so maybe if you download it tomorrow, it'll be a little more updated. But yeah, so also want to double check that you guys are aware, if you click on predefined queries, we have a subsection here. We talked about the ones on the right a little earlier, but these are all the delay reasons that are required. If you want to find only the records with delay reason missing, you can use this little checkbox here. This is a really cool tool. Statistical reports, these are the ones that you can run on a regular basis to kind of make sure that the you can get an eagle eye view on the data. Like, are you seeing kiddos who are 15 but they're in preschool, right? Well, that's not right. Are you seeing kiddos who are 4 but they're still in IFSP? Or are you seeing kids who are 2 but they're in IEP, right? So these are the kind of buttons you can run to kind of get an overview and look for obviously data that's not correct and take a look at it. Review your district of special ed attending lists. This is new feature where if you want to find your sending list, so if you've done a DSE extract in CalPADS and you may need your CalPADS person, if you want to compare your sending to receiving, so now you can go and click on choose school icon, the schoolhouse icon, and you're going to select attending and not DSEA. So if they are attending your district, but you're not listed as the DSEA, this is CalPADS considers that sending. Now, if this is an inter-district transfer that you are receiving, we may need to get your district of special ed attending updated to actually be your district and not leaving it the other district where they came from. Now, if this is some kind of MOU between your district and another district where they're doing the special education services for you and this is known as sending, well, then we're fine. But if it's an inter-district transfer, we may need to get it fixed. Then on to the receiving part of the equation, you can click on the same schoolhouse icon, but you select DSEA but not attending. This is the one where you're listed as a DSEA, but you're not reporting them and they're not in your current data. So this is the one where you guys are doing the special ed services, but you're not enrolling them for whatever reason because the majority of general ed and special ed is being provided by another district, which means that a majority of their services are general ed, but you're only doing special ed, then this might be ones where you are the receiving district. We got some new reports in here. So these, which are cool. So once you're in this mode of attending not DSEA or DSEA not attending, click on the school and district data. I think that may have been updated. I'm trying to remember here. Let me see something here. To search the list. These are so new, so hot off the presses. I might actually have a different name for this. Let me just double check here. Data monitoring list and school and district data. Yeah, that's all the same. Okay, this is all the same. Yeah. So yeah, once you're checking your receiving or sending, if you click on school and district data, that'll build a quick list for you, which is helpful. Hopefully you'll find these lists helpful. Just a quick reminder, if you're looking at enrollment, there is something called District of Geographical Residence. Don't confuse that with DSEA. DSEA is shown, but it is under the plan and the services area further down on the CalPADS record. And then the DSEA for charters, if you're a voting member of the SELPA, type 56, then you are going to have the DSEA will be your charter district. If you are a chartered by another LEA as type 55, regardless if you're independently reporting, then the DSEA will be your chartering district. And make sure that you have school type 55 for all your kiddos. And for the DSEA, if you're type 56, make sure you're also a school type. So charters, really important. Make sure your school types are all correct. Those are going to affect your FTE numbers if you're running estimates in SIRAS and you don't have the correct school type, because we're searching on school type. Okay, these are some, we already talked about this next year's data, so kind of review. Oh, and then also we have some lists for, you may want to look at. This may or may not be relevant to your district. If not, you don't have to do it, but these are some ones that other districts have found useful. The out-of-home care list, we have the link there. Credentialing audit search, this is also a link there that you can print. And then the low incidence search, we have a link there that you can print. And then data teaming. Are you guys having okay, this goes back to having a plan of attack for fall one. Do you guys, are you meeting on a regular basis? Are you discussing deadlines? Have you met with your director to look at the datas, the overdues and whatnot? If you got new staff, are you coming up with checklists for who's going to be doing what? Right. So we got a lot of that information. And don't forget, in our in this area, if I'm at been going to the support for administrators, and we have the preparing for fall one, right? Do you guys, we have a lot of information on how you're going to get there. So you may want to double check this. Let me put this in the chat again one more time. So that's about it. Preparing for census day reports, making sure you got your calendars. We already talked about that. Looking for your extracts. There's your SSID extract, DSCA extract. A quick tip on reviewing these reports. If you're new to reviewing these 16-dot reports, you may have to click that little plus. It's the tiniest little plus in there, but once you click on it, all of a sudden you'll see the things you're looking for are there. So if you're a CalPADS person and you're having to send these things to a SIRAS person who doesn't have CalPADS access, make sure you're clicking these buttons before you print it. Okay, 1612. This is going to be your eligibility by plan type. These are the episodes. We're going to print a report like this in SIRAS on 10/2. So that's what you can compare in November, December when you're looking to LA approve at this list. Same thing with the 1613. You're going to run the same report in SIRAS on 10/2 or as close to that as you can. And then hopefully the numbers should be ballpark comparing these. 1613's got your LREs and your indicators on there. It's really important we get those accurate. And then 1615 services. Do you have any 800 services? But you're not a high school district, right? Do you have any 900 services? Every single one of those should be accounted for. Are you a preschool only district, but do you see infant services listed? These are the kind of things you're going to be looking for. Are there services listed that really your district wouldn't be providing? And then overall, this is just a summary of some of the reports you'll be looking at. Just real briefly, work-based learning, while you can track it in SIRAS, work-based learning results do need to be entered into your SIS. That data does not automatically get to your SIS. And then don't forget data monitoring. You're going to be looking at your 7-dot reports as you get closer to fall one. These are the incidents. 717 unilateral removals. Those are the ones where you would know if this actually happened. Where there's an alternate IAES, interim alternative educational setting. This is where the cops shows up with cameras and everybody knows that the mayor showed up to apologize for something that happened. This is a big event. You shouldn't have any of these in your district, and if you do, you would know about it. So be really careful on these. I think we're getting better at that. But these are the screenshots I wanted to show you. I know we're getting close to the minute there, but briefly, these are these cool matrix that I wanted to show you. So print these reports literally on 10/2. They'll be useful for you. I have a data tracking monitoring worksheet. Preschool we talked about, private school follow-up. We have these tools here. If you got questions on that, we can stick around for a moment. Oh yeah, this is the beginning of the year. If you have staff who are leaving, make sure you're deactivating their accounts. And if you're not on the SPED listserv already, you should get that. And then I think I showed you earlier the SED resources. This link should take you to it if you click on it. But that's about it. I think we're wrapping up. It's 4 o'clock. Almost 3:59. Any questions? I can stick around for a moment. Jennifer, if you want to go ahead and close things out, let people off the hook, I can stay for a moment while you want to do your business.
Great. So just want to say that was a lot of information. I was sitting here typing, taking mad notes. I think I collected all the links that were given. So I'm delighted to have you all. Thank you so much. And we're going to pause the recording. And I wish you a good day if you have to leave. So here we go.